As Ukraine endures a power crisis, join our teams bringing you the latest developments in this war.
This hospital has been without heating for almost a week.
Those people who are still staying in the town are too afraid to go out.
There's no power here. People, they just pass you like shadows.
See the headlines as they happen with breaking news alerts in the app and get the full story with bbc.com/news. Follow the story for all the latest with BBC News.
This is BBC World News. On today's global drama on Capitol Hill, with the fight to become the new Speaker of the House of Representatives. Kevin McCarthy faces a battle to win one of the most important jobs in American politics, challenged by members of his own Republican Party.
I'm Will Grant on Capitol Hill for the opening of the new Congress and what the razor-thin Republican majority will mean for the Biden administration.
Also on today's programme, house-to-house fighting in the eastern Ukrainian town of Bakhmut. The head of the Russian mercenary group Wagner says Russia is facing a real struggle to capture the town. The American football star Damar Hamlin is in a critical condition after suffering a heart attack during a primetime NFL game. And an extraordinary turnout as Brazil says goodbye to Pelé. His coffin is taken through packed streets of Santos before a private funeral ceremony. Well, this is the scene live where that procession is still going through the streets, thronged with people turning out in their thousands. Hello and welcome to BBC News. Let's start in the United States and the drama as the new Congress convenes. It is a divided Congress, of course, after the midterms. The Republicans are in control of the House of Representatives, while the Democrats still have the majority in the Senate. Well, that will make life difficult for Joe Biden in the second half of his presidency, but the immediate focus in the next hour or so is on Kevin McCarthy, the Republican leader in the House who's hoping to be elected as the new Speaker, one of the most important jobs in American politics. Now, he is struggling to get the votes, with a number of his own party refusing to back him. If he fails today, it will be a first in 100 years. Well, let's cross live to Capitol Hill and cross to our correspondent Will Grant, who's there for us. And Will, this is potentially going to be quite a dramatic couple of hours, isn't it? Well, that was Tom Bateman, the latest on this story coming from the White House National Security Council spokesman, saying the United States stands firmly for the preservation of the status quo with respect to the holy sites in Jerusalem. Any unilateral action, the statement says, that jeopardizes the status quo is, quote, unacceptable. So that's the latest from the White House. Now, still to come on today's programme. The future of thousands of Thai elephants hangs in the balance as the world turns away from performing animals. Welcome back to today's Global here on BBC World News. Let's turn to our main headlines because we have drama on Capitol Hill with a fight over the new Speaker of the US House of Representatives. And house-to-house fighting in the eastern Ukrainian town of Bakhmut as the Russian mercenary group Wagner says Russia is facing a real struggle to capture the town. Now, the American football star Damar Hamlin is in a critical condition after suffering a cardiac arrest during a prime-time NFL game. The Buffalo Bills player fell to the ground after colliding with an opponent during the first quarter of the match against the Cincinnati Bengals. He received on-field medical attention for more than 30 minutes before being taken to a local hospital. Well, people have been tweeting their well wishes. Here we have this from Hamlin's team, the Buffalo Bills. They say Damar Hamlin suffered a cardiac arrest following a hit in our game. He is currently sedated and in a critical condition. And his teammate Josh Allen, the quarterback for the Buffalo Bills, simply says, "Please pray for our brother." Well, here's CBS News correspondent Jared Hill in New York with the latest on this story. Now, before we take a break, let's go back to Brazil, show you the live pictures that we've been watching for the last couple of hours, where a country has come to a standstill, stopped to pay their respects, to say goodbye to the great legend of Pelé. 3 days of national mourning. It's been led by the president, who was there at the stadium, Santos Stadium, where Pelé's been lying for the last 24 hours. The club saying 230,000 had gone through that stadium to pay their respects. Well, it is slow progress on the streets there of Santos, but we've been watching. That's where the private funeral service will be held by the family. In the next half hour, we'll talk to Don Mullen, a man who got to know Pelé extremely well. He organised the statue of Gordon Banks that Pelé went to see the opening of. They became great friends, and we'll talk to Don here on the programme in the next few minutes. Don't go away. This is BBC World News. On today's global drama on Capitol Hill, with the fight to become the new Speaker of the House of Representatives. Kevin McCarthy faces a battle to win one of the most important jobs in American politics, challenged by members of his own Republican Party. Also on today's programme, China again denounces restrictions on its travellers because of a rise in COVID infections. Beijing warns it might take reciprocal action against countries that have imposed restrictions. Pakistan's government has introduced wide-ranging limits on electricity consumption as the country grapples with an energy crisis. And as thousands of Brazilians bid farewell to Pelé, we speak to a man with a very special connection to the footballing legend. Welcome back to BBC News. Before we get to all of those stories, I'm going to show you the live pictures from Riyadh, because the superstar Cristiano Ronaldo, of course, who signed for the Saudi Arabian side of Al Nassr, they're giving his first news conference, a massive deal, $211 million, the deal to June 2025. Let's listen in. Now, let us pause from all of that. Let's catch up with business. And here's Ben Thompson. Ben.
Yes, let's take a look at the global business headlines this hour. And as we've been hearing, China is now battling a huge increase in COVID infections since the country relaxed restrictions last month. And this is starting to have a real impact on the country's economy. New data released today shows that China's export-focused factory activity shrank at a faster pace in December. And analysts say worse is still to come. Well, yesterday, the International Monetary Fund said that for the first time in 4 decades, China's growth for 2022 would likely be on par or below the global rate. Well, a little earlier, I spoke to Mark Williams. He's Chief Asia Economist at Capital Economics. Amber, for now, thanks very much. That's our South Asia editor there with the latest on those energy shortages in Pakistan. And those are your global business headlines this hour.
Ben, thanks very much. Well, let's get more on the China story that Ben was looking at, because China has again denounced the decision to impose restrictions on Chinese travellers because of the rise in COVID infections and warned it might take reciprocal action. International health officials have criticised Beijing for failing to release data on the spread of the virus and possible new variants. The US and about a dozen other countries will require those arriving from China to produce negative test certificates. Many Chinese people have been rushing to book their first overseas trips in years after Beijing lifted its own travel restrictions. Well, China's Foreign Ministry spokeswoman condemned the requirements on travellers. Now, do stay with us, because still to come on today's programme, we're back in Brazil as the country bids farewell to Pelé. We'll speak to a man who's actually in Santos and has special memories of the football legend. Welcome back to today's programme here on BBC World News. Our main story here, drama on Capitol Hill with a fight over the new Speaker of the US House of Representatives. We expect a vote in the next hour. Now let's return to our other major story that we've been juggling throughout the course of the day, because we're heading back to Brazil, where hundreds of thousands of people, we've seen them, have been lining the streets in the city of Santos to watch the footballing legend Pele's funeral procession. These some of the pictures from a little earlier, and you saw from that top shot just the amount of people. We were talking to our correspondent a short while ago who thought that at the very least, half the city had turned out. And of course, that is just the city of Santos, where of course Pele played in his career, his club side. But people have come from all parts of Brazil.
Yeah. And I think that's what Pele wants to be remembered.
Don,
and especially for the children.
Don Mullen, thank you so much for being with us for the last 20-25 minutes. Some of those stories, some of those memories, those tributes. Thank you so much for being here on BBC News. Well, those the pictures from Brazil. Let us turn away from that to the United States, because another big story there, political drama this time, as the new Congress convenes. It is a divided Congress after the midterms. The Republicans in control of the House of Representatives, while the Democrats still have the majority in the Senate. Well, that makes life difficult for Joe Biden in the second half of his presidency, but the immediate focus in the next few minutes is on this man, Kevin McCarthy, the Republican leader in the House. Now, he is hoping to be elected as the new Speaker, one of the most important jobs in American politics. He is struggling, though, to actually get the votes, with the number of his own party refusing to back him. If he fails, it would be the first time in a scenario like this in 100 years. So let's head to Capitol Hill. Let's head to our correspondent, Will Grant. I've been watching, as we were seeing those scenes in Brazil, also the pictures coming from the floor of the House. They've convened there. They've had the prayer. We're not that far away from this really important vote, are we? Will Grant there on Capitol Hill. Thanks very much, and thanks to Rena. But we're coming to the end of this particular edition. That is the scene live there on the House floor. We still haven't got the vote. I'm back in half an hour's time after Focus on Africa. By then, hopefully, we should know if Kevin McCarthy is the new Speaker of the House of Representatives. We'll have reaction and analysis here on the BBC in the next little while. Do stay with us. This is BBC World News. On today's global drama on Capitol Hill, with a fight to become the new Speaker of the House of Representatives.
I rise today to nominate the gentleman from California, Kevin McCarthy, as Speaker of the House to lead America's new Republican majority.
Kevin McCarthy battles to win one of the most important jobs in American politics, challenged by members of his own Republican Party.
So we may have a battle on the floor, but the battle is for the conference and the country, and that's fine with me.
I'm Will Grant on Capitol Hill, watching the vote, and it is on a knife edge for the Republican leader.
Also on today's programme, an extraordinary turnout as Brazil says goodbye to Pele. His coffin is taken through the packed streets of Santos and has just arrived for the private funeral ceremony, which is now underway. And house-to-house fighting in the eastern Ukrainian town of Bakhmut, as the Russian mercenary group Wagner says Russia is facing a real struggle to capture the town. Hello and welcome to BBC News. Let's start in the United States and that drama as the new Congress convenes. It is a divided Congress after the midterms, of course. The Republicans in control of the House of Representatives, while the Democrats still have the majority in the Senate. That will make life difficult for Joe Biden in the second half of his presidency. But the immediate focus now is on Kevin McCarthy, the Republican leader in the House, who's hoping to be elected as the new Speaker, one of the most important jobs in America. American politics. He, though, is struggling to get the votes, with a number of his own party refusing to back him. If he fails, it would be the first in 100 years in this type of scenario. So let's have a listen to the moment that Kevin McCarthy was actually nominated. Well, Will Grant, live there on Capitol Hill. Thanks very much. All the indications, as Will is saying, that Kevin McCarthy will not win on this first round of voting. We're expecting the actual confirmation of the result in about 40 minutes' time. But that is the indication, and as we've been saying, that would be the first time in 100 years it has gone to multiple ballots. So perhaps the next few hours, rather than minutes, are going to be critical here with the election of the House Speaker. That story is clearly moving, so stay with us here on BBC News. We will keep you constantly right up to date. Well, let's turn from that to Brazil, because hundreds of thousands of mourners have said their final goodbye to the footballing legend Pelé. The crowds lined the streets of the city of Santos, his former club. His coffin, draped in the Brazilian flag, was driven on top of a fire engine through the streets. It took hours, that procession from the stadium, finally to where Pelé, the cortege, the coffin there that you see in these pictures, arriving there for the private family burial. Well, our South America correspondent Katie Watson has been watching all today's events. Well, that was Katie Watson with her piece that has just come into the building. Do stay with us, because we'll be back live with Katie on the programme here in a moment or two. Welcome back to today's Global here on BBC World News. Our main headlines: and balloting is underway on Capitol Hill, with a real fight over the new Speaker of the US House of Representatives. And Brazil says goodbye to Pelé. His coffin has been taken through the packed streets of Santos. A private funeral ceremony is now underway. Let's turn to Ukraine, because the head of the Russian mercenary group Wagner says Russia is facing a great difficulty in its attempts to capture the eastern Ukrainian town of Bakhmut. Yevgeny Prigozhin said multiple lines of Ukrainian defence were complicating the assault, with fighting not just street to street but house to house.
At the same time, he was still so he united Brazil, I think, and people, were grateful for the fact that he spoke to so many people here across the country.
Katie, we have to leave it there. We're almost at the end of the programme. Before we end the programme, just a reminder, we're expecting the result of that Speaker vote. Kevin McCarthy trying to become Speaker. We expect that in the next 20 minutes. Do stay with us.
Hello, we've had record-breaking warmth to start 2023 across Europe.